choose to love with freedom of flight. From my heart, where the light keeps shining, and I choose to feel the whole world crying for the strength that we can rise above. I choose love.
Hi, we are Grace Healing Ministries, and welcome to the YouTube channel.
Yes.
This is Ina Marie Hale.
Yes, this is Larry Reynolds.
And we are glad to be here with you today.
Yes, we are.
We have always committed to you first that we would engage in the presence of God, seek prayer for your protection, and also to surrender all that we are in the hopes that God's presence would be the one thing that reveals on this video and anything God has at this stage of your journey for blessing upon your life.
Yes.
So we breathe as one. Yalve kamo tutrivis siria tutora mukabru tutuye meneriashua Abwoon solo hondri kharimine kairun tativisma. Yahweh, we thank you for your holy and divine presence. Your protection, your divine grace enters in upon this moment. For the sake of each and every person that comes to this video, we trust and know that your Spirit establishes this time of learning and instruction. And yes, sure, that you establish a holy protection around each person to receive only the words that you intend for this time in their journey. And the life-giving breath rises, that is the Abwoon, within us all as we become one within your love. And that's probably the most important place to start, is the love of God.
Oh, absolutely.
And this video segment and possibly series, we may have to continue this because it is such a deep subject. We promised you within Grace Healing that there's no holding back anymore. We are sharing the fullness of visions and understandings that we hold within Grace Healing. We are not holding back any understanding. We want to establish this record for you to delve into in your safe ground and evaluate and tear it apart and do whatever you need to do.
Yes.
And this specific video segment, and if we have to continue into another one, is tied also to an audio segment that we released into the website. And it is named A True Love Affair with God. So, in this, we believe in all that we've seen, witnessed, and walked upon this earth, that the experience of seeking God in your understanding, you finding God within you, is the most important thing you can do. Not finding God on the page of a book. Yes, they can be pointers to point you to God within. But what happens is I watch many people as they go to teachers or what they call ascended masters, or they go to certain religious bodies or groups, and they're seeking to find God in those places. And in our understanding, what we've witnessed is many people go into those places and they assume the veils that are governing those places and then start to view God through those veils. Because quite honestly, they haven't found God within themselves first, so they can't even have the discernment to look at those veils and wonder if they're completely of truth or completely of God's design.
Yes.
So they go there hearing something that sounds, wow, that really makes a lot of sense, or that really feels good. And next thing you know, they're that veil.
Exactly.
They're the veil of that experience they're learning. They're no longer God's presence through absolute purity, clarity, wholeness, understanding, peace, joy, love, unity. And whole bodies of people can be moved and justified into war or aggression against one another because they think religiously, this is our rightful standing. This is our state of righteousness. Therefore, we have the right to set aside God's laws to practice our own beliefs and force of understanding upon others. So it's very easy to be diverted. And one of the instructions that I feel is most important is something that was awakened in me a number of years ago when I was studying Kung Fu. And many of you have heard the different instructions out there, and we had shared and talked about this at other times. There are many teachings out there that teach people to seek where is the breath within them. Are they breathing from one chakra or another chakra, or dantian, or reaching into the spiritual understanding through the Bahwei or the Huyin, the reaching different points, the breath within the body, the breath within your experience? Where is your breath entering into you? How are you controlling this breath? And if you take this understanding and you bring it back to what I was just talking about the importance of seeking God within you, what happens is all this sounds really cool and really neat to compartmentalize the body, to bring it into a physical nature, to think about the different chakras or the different dantians or the huyin or the bahwei or the different places, and reaching into shen gong, the spiritual understandings that are beyond our physical form. But in our understanding with grace healing, we honestly believe that God's presence resides fully and completely within you.
Yes.
Not at some point that God enters into you, whether it be through the lower dantian or the third eye or whatever they're naming. And we, within Grace Healing, believe that it is important for people to seek God within first. And that measure of breath, if you've come from the audio that is the A Love Affair with God, you would have heard that we were talking about the importance of recognizing that God's breath precedes the very nature of every cell of your body and being. When I hear the word Abwoon, I feel it in every aspect of my physical body. It's not just here.
Yes.
It's not here. It's not in the lower chakras. It's not in the heart chakra or whatever you want to call it. Because what we're doing is we're separating ourselves from the limitless nature of God's presence. And what I've been led to share, which actually changed my Kung Fu teacher's life completely, is to relinquish and let go of the things you think you've learned. And if you have seen the or heard the audio, Ina speaks a lot about what she experienced when she was moved from the core of her blood family and took her children and her husband and moved into the wilds of Wisconsin and just had to, in that place of solitude, not isolation, because she found great blessing in being in God's presence. So it is a blessed and holy solitude with God. And if you can share a little bit of what you discovered in that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, but I'll go back just a little bit. Is seeking God in the early years of being awakened, that's going back over 30 years, it was that God was moving. I was beginning to hear his voice within me, and I didn't know all these teachings, and I really wasn't brought up in the church. Yes, you go to Sunday school and that kind of thing, and grandparents and everything like that, very much involved in church settings. But for me it was totally different, and it had always been a deep, quiet voice within me that I wasn't really, be awake until the time that I had children. My husband Chris and I were in Florida, beautiful mother and father-in-law that were missionary evangelists, and I was seeking, and she was one, my mother-in-law was like at that time a mentor, sharing things of what I was experiencing. And actually I was stepping out of realms that I was sort of bordered in as a traditional church. So God did move us up to upper Wisconsin rural area, and that's where all our children were born and so forth and so on. But it was in the time in that of making that decision, are we supposed to really go? And Chris and I, my husband, we only had 2 children at the time. We prayed, and God kept showing us confirmation, really trusting him, seeing the manifestations actually on the earth of certain things and within us, that we were to do that. And it wasn't an easy thing to do,
right?
Because I was very close to my family, and a small still voice rose up in me and said, what are you willing to give up to get what you want?
And what did you want?
I wanted God.
Yes.
And I'm a golf professional and a mother at this time and a wife. And I said, I give up everything just so that I can follow and know more about you. That's all I wanted.
Right.
So when we got up to northern Wisconsin, it was an awesome, beautiful thing with the 4 seasons, just growing up in Florida. West Virginia girl, but really just growing up in the hot weather.
Mm-hmm.
And that was totally God that transitioned that. And in that time, through the, without going into everything, in those 14 years, in the wintertime when I wasn't doing golf or we were having children, because we have 5.
Yes.
It was really seeking after his very presence, the love of who he is. And I know that an understanding, not everyone, goes that path, but for me, that's all I knew, that God was within me. And spending that time with him, actually just surrendering and receiving his love. And I didn't have any teachings.
Right.
I didn't have any. My mother-in-law was there as a guide, but
Yep.
she didn't say, well, you have to do this, you have to do that. And the only other thing, we didn't have churches around in a rural area. You had to go 30 miles, almost a half an hour, and in the snow with children, we had our own kind of church in our home, but it was really in the quiet time with God that I grew. And where I am today, the foundation of God was just knowing of his love. That's where...
And seeking within you.
Yes.
And it was kind of like it was thrust upon you in that way, that's the only place you could really seek.
That's it. I didn't have any
And
other guide.
that's when we talk about the importance of grace.
Yes.
Like some people would look at that and think of that as, oh man, thrust off into the wilderness. And she saw this as a point of grace within her to just draw to and seek God within her place and within her time and with her special design that God formed her to be, the way God wrote her as a living prayer.
Yes.
And she returned to, I want more of God. So I let go of these things, but what am I going to do? I'm going to keep seeking God. So now how does this go to what we were just talking about the breath? Many of you people, I know, you draw to yoga classes or you go to Qigong classes or whatever you happen to do, whether you're doing Neigong or Qigong movement of silk reeling or different things like this, and you're being taught to form the intention of a breath entering in at a certain place, ascending through the spine, circling around through the microcosmic orbit. And I believe, from what I've experienced in the years, because I did go through that,
Yeah, you did.
but God took me to this place that was deeper than that.
Mm.
And as you know, within Grace Healing, we teach God first, period.
Yeah.
That's it. God first. And what happened to me years ago, this is well over 20 years ago, where I touched this within my Qigong training when I was teaching a class. And I changed the name of the class to Abwoon, Breath of Life class. And it was drawing upon the life-giving breath of God first, touching God's presence, and then allowing God to define you and how that breath manifests within your body through its totality of existence. Not here, not here, not here, not here, but the living breath of God's presence preceding each and every cell of your being.
This is one reason, there's many, of why God has brought me in with Grace Healing. Because everything you speak and had spoken, and it was exactly what I knew inside of
Yes.
me. It wasn't all this other stuff. And as you've engaged in learning, it's just that's what was the drawing. And that's divine appointment of
Right.
God at a time that we met. But it was that, and it just like a floodgate as he began to share these things. I thought, oh my God, finally there's a voice. Because, it's within you. And I think, what am I missing? I'm hearing of these other teachings. But yet God would bring me back as I would seek him. It's just simplicity.
Yes.
Simplicity, being
Seek
childlike.
first. Yes.
Childlike and just seeking him first. That's why I say, I guess that, we have been brought together in such a way. I have things such simplicity and all yet that you have experienced and gone through, even that doesn't touch on the simplicity of just being in his presence.
Yes.
That is a true love of God.
And in that caveat right there, I want to help you to understand something. When we're speaking of the love of God, and I know you've heard this if you've seen the previous videos, but when we're speaking of the love of God, you have to remember it's not the love of man. It is not the human love, small l, small o, small v, small e. It is a capital L, capital O, capital V, capital E love that does not come with the things of suffrage that we've known to be defined as love when we were children. If you were raised in the house of an alcoholic, you're used to love surrounding you as chaos. If you were raised in a house of abuse, you think LOVE comes with the abuses. What we're talking about is relinquishing those experiences.
Yes.
Relinquishing what you think you know for knowledge. Because believe me, when my Kung Fu master would come by me, he would see me looking into me. If any of you understand how a master functions in Kung Fu, they can see what's going on within you spiritually. They can see things. Now, some of them don't fully understand it, but they can see a change in how you're breathing. And he kept grabbing hold of me and saying, what's going on? What are you doing? Because he could see I wasn't in the lower dantian breathing. I wasn't cycling the breath around the outer of the dantian so that it would rise and bring forth a strike. I was feeling a breath that emerged and began before every one of my cells throughout the whole of my body. So each day I had to go through this dichotomy as my Kung Fu teacher was standing in front of me and he'd teach me something and I'd have to go, I set that aside and I seek God. What portion of that am I now to receive? And I just, God wrote me that way, that I would seek God first. And in that breath, I started to discover this awareness that it wasn't even about how to strike, it was about how to create the situation, change the situation in such a way that there was no need to strike. And I know that this may kind of make some people a little unsettled, but we were even taught to move over a fly and move in divine love over the fly on the glass. And the glass would be here and the fly there, and then as you would move, the fly would stay in the measure of love. But in Kung Fu, it was to stay in love, then kill. Without hesitation, you were love ending that thing's existence. And I was like, I can't agree with that. We were taught to approach bumblebees in love, the breath of God's presence moving through every aspect of your being, but they called it chi, to project divine love. And then you would pet bumblebees, which was incredibly easy because bumblebees are soft and fluffy.
Yes.
So they received the petting, they received the intention, and they would kind of like, they would love it. They would absolutely love this. So here's this beautiful little creature in the midst of your hand, because you would invite it in and it would be there, and you would breathe in their instruction, draw upon the chi that was within you. But what happened was I kept going to a deeper awareness that it wasn't the chi that was me, but it was God's presence.
With that, can we end with this series? We've got
Yes.
so much to share, because
Yeah,
we
it does
can go
go pretty
on
deep,
and
yeah.
on, because it's such a beautiful unfolding here.
Yes.
And so if we could just allow those viewers to meditate even upon these words that have been spoken deep within their heart and spirit as we close to this video and move on to the next one. We'll just move right into it.
Yes.
And we
agreed.
come into agreement while dear brother here prays and releases you till our next series.
Awesome. Yahweh, we thank you for the gift of knowing your presence within us. We pray for each person now to recognize your presence and the perfect union of love that you have already established within them. Deepen within them the ability to reach into the love that you have formed and be freed from the love they have known upon this earth. We trust and know that you are with us as we head forth into the next segment of this video, and know that your spirit continues to form protection. We offer thanksgiving to engage within your love, even for those things of creation, to manifest and reveal your glory to even the simplest aspects of your creation. We love you, praise you, and worship you, and thank you for the opportunity to serve these, your children who seek you, in this holy opportunity to share the deeper truths we have been given within Grace Healing. We breathe as one.
We love you dearly, and we'll see you the next time.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeshua,